Now, as a family, we've been living by faith for the last 8 years as we planted a church in the southwest of France called Surf Church. And previously to that, there's been seasons where I've lived by faith in ministry, and growing up as a pastor's kid, I've seen my parents live by faith on numerous occasions. God provides for what He wants to see accomplished. Whatever He wants to see happen in the world, whatever He wants to see happen on the mission field, whatever He wants to see established and pioneered, then God provides for that thing. He provides the resources financially, He provides the resources with people. He provides all of the things that you can need to go deliver what He wants to see happen. And that's just a fact. He is our provider. The key thing is to line our life up with what He wants to do. How much faith does it require for you to live each and every week? And I remember my friend who was dying of leukemia challenging me with that question. How much faith have you had to exercise to live this week of life? And I thought, actually, there's been very little faith that I've had to exercise. I've got faith for my church, I've got faith for my kids, I've got faith for things I want to see happen, but for me personally, actually, everything's kind of provided for right now, and thank the Lord it is, but it's safe and secure. We've got 2 jobs, we've got a nice couple of cars, and we've got a house, and everything's great. And in that moment, I felt the challenge of, will you let go of it all, trust God with your future, and move to that place that you know needs a church to be planted? We had some strategies in place as to how the money was going to be raised, but it became very clear that those strategies hadn't really taken hold, and actually there was nothing financially in place for us to move forward into church planting in the southwest of France. There had been this massive misconception in my own mind, which is this. I had thought that the missions department would take responsibility for my financial provision and mission. Now, they'd assisted me with some strategies, but I had failed to take responsibility myself and drive those things forward. And now with just 2 months to go, I'm in a conversation where I'm recognizing actually we're at 0, and how did that happen? It happened because I'd not been attentive to that area of my life. I got very excited about what we're going to go do, but I'd not paid any attention to how it was going to happen and be done. And there hadn't been enough conversations with me and my bosses, and we'd not talked out the strategies to any degree by which I really understood what I needed to do. So in that meeting, the advice to me and my family were, you need to stop, you need to stay still, and you need to put all of this on pause for another 12 months while we go together and fix this problem and raise the finance that is necessary to launch you into church planting in the southwest of France. But I'd already resigned from my position. Things were packed, things were ready to go. It was quite a difficult situation. So I said to the team, in that meeting, I said to the missions team, I said, hey, listen, why don't we do this? Let's pray about it and see what God does in the next 24 hours. And if something miraculous doesn't happen, and there isn't a releasing God for us to go for either you guys or for us as a family, then we'll go on pause. I'll go get a job at McDonald's, Rex will go back into nursing, and we'll go on pause for 12 months, because bottom line, He's in charge. So we all agreed that this is the plan. We're going to give it 24 hours to see what's going to transpire. I walked out of that meeting, I went outside, I got on my hands and knees, and I said, Lord, I need you to provide miraculously for this to take place. I am sorry for not taking responsibility. I will take responsibility from this moment on for my own finances. And I just went to the first person that I felt the Lord lead me to, and I said, I got something to tell you, nobody knows, it needs to be in confidence, but we're going to move to the south of France to plant a church to reach the surfers. And just as it came out of my mouth, He said, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't need to hear any more of what you've got to say. I want you to know that I'm going to give you £2,000 towards your journey to plant a church. I couldn't believe it. The first person, and God had already shown his provision. So then I started to walk around my friends, which I found really uncomfortable to do because I'm good at asking for money for projects that I run, but for asking for money for me and my family to go church plant, I found it very uncomfortable. But each time, Lord, help me find the words. And I'd talk to a friend and I'd say, hey, listen, we're going to go do this thing. We need God to provide. Would you be interested in supporting it? Within the space of 24 hours, God had provided for us £25,000. I tell you all of this because there was a significant moment that took place. It was the moment that I took responsibility before God and I took ownership of the project. It was no longer somebody else's job to provide for me. It was not somebody else's responsibility to raise the money. I had to own the vision, the passion and the calling and believe in it enough to go and ask those people who are friends to support it. I learned a valuable lesson that day, that people genuinely want to see his kingdom come and they want to invest and support and bless effective mission and church planting around the world. And actually me presenting with my vision and excitement and passion about making a difference and seeing people get saved and planting this church excited people to that calling, and they were only too happy to gather around us and support this journey. So upon arriving in the southwest of France, my wife immediately started to do work cleaning people's houses. A trained nurse, highly qualified, is busy cleaning people's houses. I'm doing whatever I can, preaching wise, generating finance, doing little bits of work in the media, trying to be entrepreneurial with all the skills that I have in order to generate finance. And as we worked hard to build a solid platform of finance, as we utilized all of our savings and sold some of our stuff, and also that 25,000 that had been gifted to us, we were able to make a way to live in the southwest of France, which coincidentally is like moving to London. It's very, very expensive. We had this red van, and that's where our whole adventure started. The two kids slept on the roof in a roof tent, and our youngest slept in the back of the van with me and my wife, Reggie. And there were moments that we had to live in that van, then we get to live in another house, then we have to go back to live in that van. And God's provision was kind of moments of plenty, moments of few, and moments when the wallet had more cash in and we could afford to go out and have a meal at a restaurant and bless the kids, and then other moments it's baked beans on toast for the next week. It was up and down, but always there was this sense of thankfulness because God had provided us with this red van for us to always have somewhere to put our head, and he'd provided us all the way through our history financially, and we knew that he provided for our needs. And we were seeing this church begin to grow and explode with brand new people coming to faith. I remember one specific moment where actually things had got very difficult financially. And I got in the van and I drove the family. We couldn't even afford to stay in a campsite. So we just drove into the forest and found a field. And we parked into this field in the middle of the forest. And I remember being kind of like, God, I just don't understand. I don't understand how we seem to be going backwards. I'm there and I'm just kind of moaning at God, and while I'm moaning at God, I hear this worship coming from in the center of the forest. And I said, Regs, is that worship music? It is. I'm like, that's bizarre. You've got to remember that there are no churches in this town that we'd moved to. There were probably around about 5 or 6 Christians that we knew of at the time, and this was like worship, proper worship, coming from the forest. So we grabbed the kids and we started to walk into the forest, following the sound of the music. Eventually, deep in the forest, we came across this camp full of people stood around with guitars, with their hands raised, worshiping God, going crazy. And it was like, what have we come to? It's insane. And we walked in and introduced ourselves, and sure enough, we'd walked into the midst of this Russian Orthodox Christian camp that was taking place for 1 week in the center of this forest in the town that we live in. I was just amazed. That evening we worshiped God and we prayed together with this Russian Orthodox priest, and we stood on the top of tables and shouted God's praises with these crazy Russians, and we had this amazing night of worship. And together we prayed for the town, and we prayed for surf churches to be birthed in this town and across the world. That moment would not have happened if my finances had not got tight, and if I could have still been able to make rent, I would have been in that house. I never would have gone to that field. I never would have heard the worship. But my finances tightening up, and suddenly me having to go, okay, well, Lord, you've still provided for me. You just provided for me to live in the red van. So we'll go live in the red van for a few months. If that moment had not happened, I'd have missed out on that incredible moment of provision from God. You see, God's provision in that moment wasn't financial. God's provision in that moment was spiritual. He put me with a bunch of worshipers, a bunch of prayers to pray into the big future of what God has for us. The lesson is, God provides for what you need. There are times of plenty and there are times of few, and we navigate both of those things and we keep our eyes focused upon Jesus. And as we do that, He takes us through those vulnerable moments. And my faith is being tested time and time again, as will yours if you embark upon this journey of mission in the world, church planting, aid work, whatever it may be. Your faith is going to be tested, but God does provide.